Dan Bongino is a former Secret Service agent. He's the author of Spygate, the attempted sabotage of Donald J. Trump, and he joins us tonight. Dan, I guess this shouldn't be as surprising as we are saying it is. One of the reporters whose byline is on this story, Anthony Cormier, seems like a real reporter to me. Well, he is a real reporter and seems like a decent one. The other guy whose name is on the story, Jason Leopold, is a political activist with a long history of making reckless and unfounded charges. He's the guy who reported in 2006, I believe, that Karl Rove had been indicted, and that turned out to be false. He's not a journalist. Again, he's a political activist. So what does this tell us about the credibility of Buzzfeed or any publication that would employ a guy like this to cover a story this central?
Yeah, Tucker, there's also some other allegations out there about Leopold, about plagiarism. This is a real black eye for the media today. Now, as you know, Tucker, Buzzfeed has been involved in a significant fake news campaign before as well, where they were the first ones to run with the dossier, which really was the initiation and the flashpoint for this whole investigation. Tucker, this isn't really a good day. You know, listen, I'm a supporter of the president. I don't think that's a big secret. But we do need a free and fair press, or some semblance of it, Tucker.
Yeah.
And even though I do my best to call out instances of malicious malfeasance and misfeasance in reporting, this story today is a significant black eye for the media outlets all over the country. And you know what? It shows that Donald Trump is correct when he says that a lot of times these people are, at a minimum, the enemies of truth. I think that's a pretty accurate statement at this point. This story was devastating. I mean, you saw it. People were frothing at the mouth all day over
Yes.
There were calls for impeachment. There was a guy on another network making Nixon-like allegations over his Twitter account to hundreds of thousands of people. This does the country absolutely no good. This was really a disgrace.
But it was revealing. I mean, the story was tough. I mean, let me just be completely honest about it. If that story had been accurate, I think it would have been very hard for the administration to survive it. I mean, the story, again, alleged that the president had directed his personal attorney to lie to the Congress of the United States under oath, to commit perjury. So that's not that's a crime. That's a felony. So it was a very, very serious story. But the reaction from the press, but it turned out to be a false story, and it was always a story that was not corroborated. There were no names in it. So the reaction from the press all day long was, you know, finally. I mean, it was like Christmas. We got him. We've been working for 2 years to get him, and we finally got him. And I wonder if that's the role of the press. That seems like the role of political consultants to me, to get a politician.
Well, Tucker, I'm not in any way trying to be self-laudatory or pat myself on the back, but there were red flags as a former federal agent all over this story earlier in the day. Let me point out, too, why would Donald Trump lie and initiate a crime, which you are correct, instructing Michael Cohen to lie if that happened, which now it looks like it obviously didn't, is a crime? Why would he instruct him to lie about a non-crime? A building project in Moscow, Tucker, is not illegal. There's nothing illegal about it. That part of the story made no sense. But secondly, think about this, Tucker. You were in journalism before. You know, you have the scoop of the century right here, right? And you give it to BuzzFeed and to a reporter at BuzzFeed with a checkered past? What does this say to you? Think this through in the audience. This was probably some kind of a canary trap. It was probably someone feeding false information to sniff out some leakers on the inside of the government. At the only people eager enough to pick up this ridiculous story was this discredited guy at BuzzFeed with a history of malicious actions in the journalism field. That's what it says to me. I could be wrong. It could just be a bad source. But this says to me that this was probably a canary trap, and this guy got suckered into the whole thing. There were red flags all over this story if you were paying attention.
One of the reasons this country is so volatile right now is because nobody trusts people in authority. So many of our institutions have been discredited, and part of the reason they're discredited is because nobody's ever held accountable for misdeeds, for screwing up, intentionally or not. So here you have a publication that has the support to the tune of tens, hundreds of millions of dollars from business. BuzzFeed has a huge market cap, okay? And they're the ones who printed the dossier without verifying any of it. It turned out to be false. It turned out to be a political document. And then they run this story, and you sort of wonder at a certain point, BuzzFeed's only been around for a few years, and they've run two of the biggest, what appear to be hoaxes of this moment. Is there any accountability at all?
I don't think so. The only accountability is that the public, Tucker, journalists have one job, just one, to get the facts right. When you don't get the facts right and the public overwhelmingly, upwards of 80 to 90% of conservatives don't trust you, that kind of says, like, you suck, pardon my language, but you're not. It's like if your job is to sell cars and you don't sell a car, you're fired. The media's one job is to get the facts right. When 90% of people in a political party say you're not telling them the truth, that's the ultimate barometer of your hashtag epic failure. Tucker, this isn't even it. They failed on the Mike Flynn story, the Deutsche Bank story, the WikiLeaks Don Jr. story, McClatchy on the Prague dossier Cohen story, the Drapes Nikki Haley story in the New York Times. It is just endless, and then public trust in the media is gone. This is not a good day for the country. Believe me, I'm not smiling about this.
That's what it is, and it's, the root of it is understandable, recognizable to anybody who's ever supervised reporters. I've supervised a lot of reporters, and I always told them I've got, pretty strong political views, but I always say to the reporters, if you're too angry, if you hate the person you write about, or if you love the person you write about, you shouldn't be writing about that person because you can't see things clearly, and you're very likely to make mistakes because you're blinded by your own emotions. So if you're the editor assigning this piece at Buzzfeed and you're assigning it to a guy who's a political activist transparently, and it was a history of getting things wrong and making things up and plagiarizing, that's crazy behavior. That's reckless behavior. Why would you do that?
And Tucker, even worse is these stories that are mistakes and are not properly edited, or not properly supervised, or not properly fact-checked are so transparently obvious that there was a missing step. You had one of the reporters admit he hasn't seen the evidence. What guy? I mean, is this is journalism in this era? And the stories, Tucker, are never, ever mistakes, with the dreaded air quotes, are never mistakes that are pro-Trump. That's got to say to you that something is wrong. And believe me, I don't want pro-Trump mistakes. I want fair coverage. I'm simply suggesting that when a litany of stories over the Trump 2 years in office right now, which are bombshells, are continuously debunked in just an incredible fashion, embarrassing the media, and are anti-Trump, you gotta believe there's something wrong in America's newsrooms, but they just have no ability to self-reflect because they can't see themselves. It's like the Truman Show, Tucker. They're Jim Carrey in the Truman Show right now.
The standards have got, and I feel this Cormier guy, who was a newspaper reporter, won a Pulitzer Prize, seems like kind of a straight arrow guy. He gets a double byline with this kind of nutty Leopold character, who everyone knows is not a reliable narrator, to put it mildly. I can't imagine why he accepted writing a story with this other guy. A very turned out to be a big mistake, I guess. Dan, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thanks a lot, Tucker. Good seeing you.